Have the Eagles found their franchise quarterback?
I'm not sold yet.
I don't think Jalen Hurts is their quarterback for the future. It's a franchise quarterback that you're going to stick with and say, I'm going to go win a Super Bowl.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to lead Philadelphia or any NFL organization to a Super Bowl.
I just don't believe a quarterback in today's game can run you to a Super Bowl and throw the ball as ineffectively as he does.
Appreciate you. Let them know. Let them boys know, man. Tell them get off your back.
Man, Jalen Hurts has a lot to be proud about. He shut a lot of people up.
Including you, Shannon, but you aren't the only one.
I owe publicly Jalen Hurts an apology. I was probably one this year who's been the hardest on him.
As we just witnessed Jalen Hurts guide the Eagles to their second Lombardi trophy, the road wasn't easy, mainly for him. Jalen has been getting doubted his entire career, but has yet to give up on himself, and this has been the case since his high school days. So stick around to see how every time Jalen was doubted, he shut up his haters. As a 4-star recruit in a stacked 2016 class, the Channelview High School quarterback faced relentless scrutiny from scouts who struggled to see past his unorthodox throwing motion. While his 6'2", 210-pound frame and 4'6", 40 speed turned heads, scouts whispered concerns about his ability to transform from athlete to quarterback at the elite college level. While throwing for 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns as a senior, while rushing for 941 yards and 17 rushing touchdowns wasn't enough for scouts. His playoff exits became Exhibit A for critics. Despite a 42-13 career record, Jalen never lifted a state championship trophy, which is like a sin in a state like Texas football-obsessed culture. His final high school game ended in a second-round blowout, 71-21, only throwing 22 of 38 for 149 yards and 2 interceptions. And recruits scribbled down notes like elite athlete, but can he read SEC defenses? And clutch genes unproven. Even his 4-star rating fell hollow, as programs like Texas A&M and Oklahoma prioritized polished pocket passers, some suggesting he switched to safety. But when the man himself, Nick Saban, offered him a scholarship, the football world was baffled. Analysts joked that Alabama had recruited a glorified Wildcat quarterback who would never master their pro-style offense, while the Alabama staff praised his competitive character. But insiders speculated Jalen would warm benches behind 5-star prospect Blake Burnett, leaving many saying Nick Saban saw Jalen as insurance. Message boards erupted. Another Bama athlete project. They'll probably move him to Wildcat by sophomore year. Few anticipated the perfect storm brewing. A coach willing to overhaul his pro-style playbook and a quarterback hungry to weaponize every doubter's take. As signing day approached, the football world remained split. Was this going to be the next Tim Tebow or just another athlete out of his position? But the answer would soon rewrite SEC history books. Jalen's freshman year at Alabama was a whirlwind of criticism, doubts, and redemption. When the 2016 season started, Jalen was just another name in a crowded quarterback room, competing against some talented players like Blake Burnett, a 5-star recruit, Cooper Bateman, a seasoned junior pocket passer, and David Cornwell, a former 4-star recruit. Many believe Jalen, a true freshman and dual-threat quarterback, was too fresh to seriously compete for the starting job. Critics labeled him as a run-first QB, questioning his accuracy, decision-making, and ability to handle the pressure of leading a powerhouse like Alabama against SEC defenses. The season opener against USC seemed to confirm those doubts, at least at first. Blake Burnett was named the starter, but struggled to find rhythm in the offense. Then came Jalen's moment. Entering off the bench late in the first quarter, his first play was disastrous.
49. But the ball is fumbled his very first snap, and SC recovers.
Damn, his very first snap was a fumble, but what followed was nothing short of electrifying. Jalen quickly shook off the nervousness and delivered 4 touchdowns, 2 passing and 2 rushing, guiding Alabama to a dominant 52-6 victory. His poise under pressure and dynamic playmaking immediately captured attention. By halftime of week 1, it was clear Alabama had found its quarterback, not in Barnett or Bateman, but in an unheralded freshman who refused to let one mistake define him. Jalen's rise wasn't without controversy. Blake, frustrated by losing his starting role to Jalen so quickly, transferred mid-season and later criticized Nick Saban's handling of the situation.
I wasn't able to take advantage of those 2 drives that I got, and because of that, you know, it was from that point on Jalen's job. And then what ultimately kind of led to the decision of me transferring was really tough for me to comprehend at that time when I was at that age was just a sense of clarity as to why things really happened.
He did come to see me today before practice with some concerns about his future. You know, we'd love to see him be a part of the program in the future, but we also want him to do what's best for him.
Meanwhile, Jalen continued to exceed expectations. He became the first true freshman to start at quarterback for Alabama since 1984 and led the Crimson Tide to an SEC championship and a berth in the college football playoffs. But along the way, some still found reasons to doubt him. They labeled him as a game manager, arguing that Alabama's dominant defense and running game carried the team while Jalen just needed to avoid mistakes. The criticism reached a peak after the national championship game against Clemson. Despite scoring a go-ahead touchdown with 2 minutes left, Jalen struggled for much of the game against Clemson's elite defense. When Deshaun Watson orchestrated a game-winning drive in the final seconds, critics pounced on Jalen's perceived shortcomings as a passer, and the loss reignited questions about whether he could truly elevate Alabama's offense or if he was simply benefiting from the talent around him.
Never want to be on this end of it, but I mean, today we are, and my sophomore season starts tomorrow.
But even as doubts lingered about his ability to handle elite defenses or lead in high-pressure moments, Jalen's leadership and resilience were undeniable. By the end of the season, he had not only won SEC Offensive Player of the Year, but also cemented himself as one of college football's most compelling figures, a freshman who turned criticism into fuel and made history along the way. But it will all come crashing down a year later in the 2018 national championship game between Alabama and Georgia. This was supposed to be Jalen's crowning moment. Instead, it became a nightmare that would test his character and reshape his entire football journey. As the lights of Mercedes-Benz Stadium shined bright, Jalen took the field with the weight of a destiny on his shoulders. But something was off. The usually dynamic quarterback looked hesitant, almost like shell-shocked, as he struggled to find his rhythm against the swarming Georgia defense. The first half unfolded like a slow-motion nightmare for him and the Crimson Tide faithful, completing just 3 of 8 passes for 21 yards. Jalen looked helpless, and the whispers in the stands grew to a roar. Is this really our championship quarterback? Then came the moment that shocked everyone in the stadium and at home watching, as Bama came back out of the locker room for the second half, and the true freshman Tua was warming up with the first team. Nick Saban had made his move, leaving Jalen, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year just a season prior, watching from the sidelines as the freshman orchestrated one of the greatest comebacks in championship history in overtime.
Balboa trying to make up for it, fires to the end zone, touchdown! Alabama wins!
As confetti rained down on a victorious Alabama team, a storm of speculation swirled around Jalen. Would he transfer? Could he ever reclaim his starting job? And had we just witnessed the end of Jalen Hurts, the quarterback? But not for 1 second did Jalen pout or feel some type of way that he was pulled at halftime, as he expressed gratitude towards his freshmen.
Your reaction when you found out Tua was going to start the second half, honestly?
He was going to step in and do his thing.
What was your message to him?
Ball. Play your game. Ball. You know, he's destined for stuff like this. You know, he has the it factor, and I'm so happy for him, happy for this team.
The aftermath was a whirlwind of emotions and hot takes. Many praised Saban's genius decision, while simultaneously killing Jalen's future as a top-tier quarterback.
What do you think Saban should do from here?
I think Saban should bench him, make him the second-string quarterback.
Jalen Hurts, you'll never play starting quarterback for the University of Alabama again. I would have left.
Let me be very, very clear. Jalen Hurts is not impressive. I'm just going to call it what it is. Somebody got to do it.
But little did anyone know, this crushing moment of doubt would be the catalyst for one of the most remarkable redemption stories in recent memory. The 2018 offseason at Alabama was everything but ordinary. It was a time of heated debates, whispers in the locker rooms, and a fan base divided between two quarterbacks who had shown that they could be that guy. On one side stood Jalen Hurts, the steady battle-tested leader who had compiled a 26-2 record as a starter and led Alabama to back-to-back national championship games. On the other side was Tua, the electric sophomore whose second-half heroics in the Natty game had already reached legendary status. Weeks before Game 1, fans were asked who would they want as their starter.
Tua all the way.
Tua.
Who's your guy?
Tua.
Why?
Because did you see the game?
Jalen Hurts, of course. I feel like he's the man.
Who you got?
Tua all the way. Tua all the way.
Why?
I think Jalen Hurts starts.
Hey, you know, for me, I go Jalen. 26-2.
Right now, I think Hurts did a good job while he was there. I think Tal is got that adrenaline. He's got that drive.
What the fuck?
The entire football world held their breaths as Nick Saban weighed his options. Little before the 2018 training camp, this was where he stood with the situation.
It's still to be determined as to who's going to play quarterback for Alabama. So some of your questions, when you ask me about that, I'm going to say, we'll see.
For months, speculation swirled. Would Saban stick to the proven winner in Hurts or hand the keys to the young gunslinger sophomore? And the answer came just before the season opener, as Tua was named the starter. And the decision sent shockwaves through Tuscaloosa. For Jalen, it was a gut-wrenching moment. Just 2 years earlier, he had been crowned as the future of Alabama football. Now he was on the sidelines watching as Tua took the huddle. However, in week 1, they both actually saw some action. But what most people didn't see is what was happening behind closed doors. While other players might have pouted or transferred like Blake Burnett did in Jalen's freshman year, he chose a different path. He stayed. He practiced with relentless focus, sharpening his mechanics and improving his ability to read defenses under the guidance of his OC and quarterbacks coach. Even as his playing time was limited, the noise around him grew louder. But Jalen remained composed, quietly preparing for whatever opportunity might come next. The decision to stay wasn't easy, nor was it celebrated at the time. Many questioned, why would you sacrifice a year of eligibility just to sit behind Tua? But in hindsight, it became clear that this period of adversity wasn't the end of his story. It was just the beginning of an incredible transformation. What nobody knew then was that this chapter would set the stage for one of college football's most unforgettable redemption arcs and prove that sometimes losing isn't about failure, it's preparation for even greater triumph. The 2018 SEC Championship game between Alabama and Georgia was the game Jalen recaptured the hearts of Bama fans again. Tua, the Heisman frontrunner, had balled all season, leading Bama to an undefeated record. But as the game unfolded, the same place Jalen lost his job just a year prior, Georgia came out swinging. Their defense smothered Tua, forcing him to make hella mistakes, 2 interceptions and a string of bad throws. To make matters worse, Tua's body began to betray him. Already nursing a sprained ankle from earlier in the season, he was beat up throughout the game, eventually going down in the fourth quarter after one of his O-linemen stepped on his foot. The sight of him limping off the field had Bama fans silenced. Alabama was already trailing 28-21 with just 11 minutes left, and their championship hopes now rested on the shoulders of Jalen. This moment was more than just a football game. It was time for redemption. When he stepped onto the field that night, it felt like a movie script coming to life. The doubters were loud, the pressure was intense, but Jalen played with poise and precision that silenced every critic. On his first drive, he marched Alabama downfield, capping it off with a clutch touchdown pass to tie the game at 28. Then, with just minutes remaining and Alabama in great position after a failed Georgia fake punt, Jalen delivered again, this time with his legs.
Just inside the 16, quarterback draw, Jalen Hurts, touchdown!
Did you just hear how crazy the stadium went? Jalen had regained the love back as Alabama went on to win 35-28, securing their 8th SEC title and cementing Jalen's legacy as more than just a backup. This wasn't just a victory for Alabama, it was a personal vindication for Jalen. In just over 11 minutes of play, he completed 7 of 9 for 82 yards and a touchdown, while adding 28 rushing yards and another score on the ground. It was a performance that reminded everyone that resilience and the right preparation can turn even the darkest moments into triumph, even leaving Nick Saban choked up on his words when talking about Jalen.
Fantastic job. I'm so proud of this guy for what he's done this year. I can't even tell you. Great comeback for our team.
Everybody said that you should transfer. Everybody said that you shouldn't come back in this scenario. But what told you that you should to bring you to this moment?
I put it in God's hand.
But then, just days after Bama lost in the 2019 Natty game to Clemson, he announced his decision to transfer to the University of Oklahoma. The news was met with a mix of intrigue and some raised eyebrows.
Is Jalen Hurts leaving Alabama the right decision?
It was a good decision, but it's 365 days too late. Jalen Hurts should have left, should have been gone.
Jalen was stepping into a program that just produced back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners and #1 overall draft picks in Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. Lincoln Riley's high-octane offense was known for precision passing and explosive playmaking, and many doubted whether Jalen could live up to the lofty expectations.
I think I clearly understood what I got myself into, but I also know that I have expectations for myself.
The critics were loud. Analysts questioned whether his skill set as a bruising dual-threat quarterback and a reputation of running over defenders could mesh with Riley's system, which demanded elite accuracy and decision-making. Some even suggested that Oklahoma's streak of Heisman-caliber quarterbacks would end because of him. But Jalen had heard it all before, from his days as an overlooked high school recruit to his time as a backup at Alabama. Doubt had always been the fuel that drove him, and now in Norman, Oklahoma, he had one final season to rewrite his story. He entered the season with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. Throughout the first 7 weeks, he was nothing short of spectacular, putting up career best numbers and silenced many of the doubters who had questioned whether he could thrive in Lincoln Riley's quarterback-friendly system. By week 6, he had thrown for just over 2,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions, while rushing for another 705 yards and 10 touchdowns. He had stamped his status in the Heisman Trophy conversation, and Oklahoma looked like a legitimate national championship contender. But then came the 2019 Peach Bowl, a playoff semifinal, which was supposed to be his chance to cement his legacy, but ended up being his last game in a college uniform. After a season of proving the doubters wrong at Oklahoma, Jalen and the Sooners faced their biggest test yet, the undefeated LSU Tigers, led by Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow. But what unfolded that night in Atlanta was nothing short of a nightmare for Oklahoma. From the opening whistle, LSU dominated. Joe orchestrated an offensive clinic, throwing for 7 touchdowns on 493 yards, leaving Oklahoma's defense gasping for air. For Jalen, what critics failed to see in this moment was Jalen's resilience. While others might have been broken by such a loss, Jalen used it as fuel. He didn't shy away from accountability. Instead, he faced the media with grace and acknowledged his shortcomings.
Hurts me in my heart, when I decided to come to this school. I told Coach Riley, I'm going to go win you a national championship, and I failed to do that. And it hurts me the most, because usually when you come up short in something, you can come back and you can fix it. I can't come back and fix it.
Though the Peach Bowl ended in heartbreak for him, it became another lesson for a quarterback whose career had been defined by overcoming adversity. The loss may have added fuel to his critics' arguments, but for it was just another obstacle on the path of proving them all wrong, a path that will ultimately lead him to success at the highest level of football. When the Eagles selected him with the 53rd overall pick in the 2020 draft, the fans were not happy.
What? What the fuck? A quarterback?
You did not, Howie. You did not. You did not, Howie.
Jalen Hurts, dude. Jalen Hurts, Howie.
Oh God, Pete left. Pete left. What?
I'm fucking done. I'm done. What the? We have a fucking quarterback.
With Carson Wentz fresh off leading the team to an NFC East title in 2019, many questioned why the Eagles would draft a quarterback so high when there were more important roster needs. Critics called it a wasted pick, doubting Jalen's potential to become a legitimate NFL starter and labeling him a future gadget player or backup. The move sparked debates, with some interpreting it as a lack of confidence in Carson, though the Eagles framed it as building a quarterback house factory for long-term stability. Jalen's rookie season began quietly, but by week 13, with Carson struggling and the team at a 3-8-1 record, Carson was benched for Jalen, and the rookie immediately energized the team, leading an upset win over the Saints in his first start. His dual threat abilities revitalized the offense, but inconsistency soon followed. In week 15, Jalen shined with 338 yards and 4 touchdowns against Arizona, but in week 16, he threw 2 interceptions and lost a fumble in a 37-17 loss to Dallas, crushing their playoff hopes, and critics questioned whether he could develop into a true NFL passer.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a weapon. I don't know if he's a great quarterback.
He's got to prove that he can throw the football.
I see is a marginally accurate quarterback. He's athletic, but he doesn't like to get hit.
Not Lamar Jackson. And unless you're that, you got to be able to throw it.
Doubts peaked in week 17 when Jalen was controversially benched for Nate Studfield in a narrow loss to Washington, which really eliminated the Eagles from playoff contention. The move drew immediate criticism of head coach Doug Peterson and reignited questions about Jalen's future as a franchise quarterback. Despite the skepticism, Jalen saw his struggles as opportunities to grow, continuing his career-long battle against doubters.
That Jalen Hurts is the guy moving forward. I'm not saying that he isn't, but I have not seen enough to convince me.
The 2021 season was supposed to be Jalen's chance to silence doubters and solidify his role as the Eagles' franchise quarterback. However, as the season progressed, concerns grew. While his running ability remained a threat, his passing became a source of frustration. In week 6 against the Buccaneers, he managed just 115 passing yards in a 28-22 loss, fueling doubts about his ability to lead an NFL offense. The low point came in week 12 against the Giants, where he threw 3 interceptions in a 13-7 loss. His erratic decision-making and accuracy raised alarms, and the criticism intensified. Calls for the Eagles to draft a new QB in 2022 dominated sports radios, with analysts questioning whether Jalen could transition from a dual threat player to a reliable passer.
But I'm always trying to tweak what can change to put him in this tier of the Mahomes and the Herberts, and I wonder, is that even possible?
Facing a career-defining moment, Jalen stood at the crossroads. The narrative was slipping away, threatening to overshadow his potential. Yet his response to this adversity would not only shape his future, but also redefine what it means to be a modern NFL quarterback. And the 2022 season was a turning point for Jalen, though doubts lingered. Despite leading the Eagles to a 14-3 record in the NFC top seed, critics argued that he was carried by a stacked roster, including stars like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The questions now were, is he truly elite? Can he win when it matters most? And Jalen answered with a pretty good season, 3,700 passing yards, 22 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions, while also rushing for 760 yards and 13 touchdowns. His one-on-one passer rating earned him a Pro Bowl nod and MVP consideration, yet some remained unconvinced.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to lead Philadelphia or any NFL organization to a Super Bowl.
He just lacks the necessary tools as far as throwing the ball consistently, accurately.
And the Super Bowl became the ultimate test. He delivered a historic performance, throwing for 304 yards and a touchdown, while also rushing for 3 scores. But a second quarter fumble returned for a touchdown by the Chiefs shifted momentum in a 38-35 loss. Despite the heartbreak, Jalen proved he belonged among the NFL elites. Walking off the field this day, the questions were no longer about his ability to compete with the best, but if he can actually get the job done. The loss fueled his relentless drive for greatness, setting the stage for what was to come. But that doubt creeped right back up in the following season in 23. Fresh off a Super Bowl appearance and a $255 million contract extension, expectations were sky high. But as the season progressed, doubts resurfaced. In week 6 against the Jets, Jalen threw 3 interceptions, including a costly pick 6 that sealed a close 20-14 loss. And as he walked back to the locker room that day, the weight of expectations seemed to come crashing down upon him, and the whispers of overrated grew.
Jalen Hurts is not the answer.
Hurts balling out. Psych, he didn't do anything.
The number 1 defense, running back. Jalen Hurts is not the answer.
Why is Brown not getting enough touches? You gotta include A.J. Brown.
The performance reignited questions about his worth and whether he could handle the pressure of his massive contract. Despite a 10-1 start, critics pointed to his inconsistent play, accuracy issues, and a doubling of his interception total compared to 2022. As the Eagles' offense struggled, he faced mounting pressure and conflicting coaching messages, leading to further inconsistency. The once dominant team began to fold in crucial moments, raising louder questions. Had the NFL figured him out, and could he ever lead the Eagles back to the Super Bowl? But just when it seemed the doubters might be right, Jalen silenced them all in 2024. This season was a roller coaster of emotions, a journey that began with doubt and criticism but ended with redemption on the highest stage. After a string of disappointing performances early in the year, the critics emerged in full force. Analysts questioned Jalen's ability to lead, with some even suggesting the Eagles made a $255 million mistake. And by December, the criticism wasn't just external. Reports emerged of internal concerns within the Eagles organization about Hurts' development as a passer and the offense's heavy reliance on their running game. A brief situation unfolded involving Jalen and A.J. Brown that sparked media speculation. Following a narrow victory over the Carolina Panthers, A.J. was asked about what the offense needed to improve.
The offense wasn't good enough. What are some things you think that the offense needs to improve on? Passing.
This comment, though seemingly straightforward, ignited rumors about the potential tension between Brown and Hurts, especially given the high expectations surrounding the team's performance during their 9-game winning streak. That's when media outlets highlighted his declining passing stats compared to previous seasons, pointing out mechanic flaws and decision-making issues. The narrative seemed clear. Jalen Hurts was not living up to expectations.
Some things from Jalen Hurts that still concerned you, Dan, and you've got to take.
Yeah, decision-making, and I do not believe that Jalen Hurts played well. I think if you're the Eagles, there's a lot that you liked, but there's also like, man, our quarterback got to be better at decision making.
The situation escalated when Eagles veteran Brandon Graham weighed in during a radio appearance, suggesting that AJ's remarks could have been handled better and hinting at the possible tension in his relationship with Jalen. However, AJ quickly addressed the media to clarify his statement, emphasizing that his critique of the passing game was not directed solely at Jalen and affirming that there was no personal issue between them.
He asked the question of what the offense can do better. Obviously, it's not running the ball. He's about to win MVP.
In a response to this issue that the media tried to create, Jalen and AJ balled out the following week, with Jalen going 25 of 32 for 290 yards and 2 touchdowns, and AJ had 110 of those yards in one of those touchdowns.
So that's what y'all want to see, huh?
And the duo continued to connect effectively in games, silencing the critics by maintaining their chemistry and focusing on team success. But as the leaves turned and winter set in, something shifted. Jalen had found another gear and silenced the doubters with clutch performances down the stretch, wheeling the Eagles into the playoffs with a series of fourth-quarter comebacks that left fans breathless. Yet, even as Philadelphia marched through the postseason, the skeptics remained. Sure, he's playing well now, they said, but can he get it done on the biggest stage? Enter Super Bowl 59. Under the bright lights facing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Jalen put on a performance for the ages. He was surgical, completing 17 of 22 passes for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also got things done with his legs as he rushed for 72 yards and another score. But the Eagles defense played their part as well, suffocating the Chiefs offense and forcing crucial turnovers. But this was Jalen's moment, his chance to finally shut up all the doubters. As the final seconds ticked away with the scoreboard reading 40-22, the magnitude of the achievement set in, and as the green and white confetti rained down, he reflected on a long road that had brought him to this moment.
Personally, myself, I've just been able to use every experience and learn from it. The good, the bad, all of it, using it as fuel.
The quarterback who had been benched in a national championship game, who had transferred schools to prove himself, then had been drafted as a backup, now was a Super Bowl champion and MVP. Just 5 years later, his journey from an overlooked recruit to the pinnacle of pro football was complete.
It's been a long journey. It's been a journey of ups and downs and highs and lows, and I've always stayed true to it in the end, having this vision of just being the best that I can be.
His career is a testament to perseverance, a living example that the harshest critics can become the loudest cheerleaders.
If you go back and study him at Alabama, you go back and look at him at Oklahoma, all he does is win, Stephen A. Man, Jalen Hurts has a lot to be proud about. He shut a lot of people up, and I was one of those guys.
I owe publicly Jalen Hurts an apology. I was probably one this year who's been the hardest on him.
From college benching to Super Bowl MVP, his story should remind you that it's not about how you start, but how you finish. And for Jalen, the finish was nothing short of legendary. And before you go, get this quick message from him.
When a critic says you wouldn't become a very good NFL quarterback, how you making it look so easy?
I might have to ask them that question. Let's see if they can answer that. I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion. It's not about anybody else.
The scripture that I lean on heavily is John 13:7. You may not know now, but later you'll understand. And along with that faith, it's been a lot of work.
I'm blessed for it all, and I definitely say I'll never change anything that's happened in my life and in my career.